Motivation is one of the most central ideas in psychology because it explains why people do what they do, how they keep going when things get difficult, and what makes them stop or change direction. Without understanding motivation, human behavior looks random or confusing. But when you see the forces behind motivation, you realize that almost every action, from the smallest decision to the biggest life goals, has a reason rooted in what drives us. Psychologists have studied motivation for decades to understand what pushes and pulls people towards certain actions and how these processes affect learning, performance, relationships, and even mental health. At its core, motivation is the process that initiates, guides, and sustains behavior. Think about a student preparing for an important exam. The fact that they sit down, avoid distractions, and spend hours studying is not just a random act. It's fueled by a mix of motives. Maybe the desire to get good grades, the hope of securing a scholarship, or even the fear of failing. In this way, motivation is like the invisible engine behind the visible actions. You may not see motivation itself, but you can see its effects in behavior, persistence, and effort. Motivation is not a one-size-fits-all concept. It comes in different forms, and psychologists often divide it into two broad categories: intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic motivation comes from within a person. For example, someone who learns to play the piano because they enjoy music and love the feeling of mastering a new piece is driven by intrinsic motivation. On the other hand, extrinsic motivation comes from outside factors, such as rewards or pressures. The same piano learner might practice not because they enjoy it, but because their parents promised them a gift if they pass the music exam. Both forms of motivation can be powerful, but they work differently and can lead to different outcomes. Intrinsic motivation tends to produce longer-lasting engagement because the activity itself feels rewarding. When someone loves what they're doing, they don't need external pressure to keep going. They find joy in the process. Extrinsic motivation can also be effective, especially for short-term goals. But if the rewards or pressures disappear, the motivation often weakens. For instance, a student who studies only to avoid punishment might stop putting in effort once the threat is gone. This distinction is important in education, workplaces, and even personal life, because it shows why fostering intrinsic motivation often leads to better outcomes than relying only on external rewards. One classic psychological theory that explains motivation is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow suggested that humans are motivated by a series of needs that build on each other, starting with basic physical needs like food and safety, moving up to social needs like belonging and love, and reaching higher levels such as esteem and self-actualization. For example, if someone is hungry and struggling to survive, their primary motivation will be finding food, not worrying about personal growth. But once their basic needs are met, they can shift their focus toward friendships, achievements, and eventually self-development. This idea helps explain why motivation changes depending on a person's life situation. Another influential approach is self-determination theory, which emphasizes three basic psychological needs: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. According to this theory, people are most motivated when they feel in control of their actions, autonomy, when they feel capable of mastering tasks, competence, and when they feel connected to others, relatedness. For example, an employee who has freedom to choose how to complete their work, who feels skilled and appreciated, and who enjoys positive relationships with colleagues is likely to feel highly motivated. In contrast, if those needs are not met, if they feel controlled, unskilled, or isolated, motivation drops quickly. Motivation also plays a major role in how people deal with challenges and setbacks. Psychologists often distinguish between people with a growth mindset and those with a fixed mindset. Someone with a growth mindset, who believes abilities can improve with effort, tends to stay motivated even after failure. They see challenges as opportunities to learn. On the other hand, someone with a fixed mindset, who believes abilities are unchangeable, is more likely to give up when things get tough. For example, two students might fail a math test. One thinks, "I'm not good at math, so there's no point in trying," while the other thinks, "I didn't prepare enough, but I can improve next time." The difference in mindset directly affects motivation and persistence. In real life, motivation is not just about reaching goals, but also about sustaining healthy behaviors. Take exercise as an example. Many people start going to the gym with strong motivation, often driven by external reasons like wanting to look better for an event. But over time, unless they find intrinsic motivation, such as enjoying the energy boost, feeling healthier, or appreciating the stress relief, the habit often fades. This is why gyms are full in January, with people driven by New Year's resolutions, but attendance drops by February. Long-term motivation usually requires deeper, more personal reasons that connect with one's values and identity. Motivation also interacts with emotions. Positive emotions like excitement and hope can boost motivation, while negative emotions like fear or frustration can either push people forward or hold them back, depending on how they're managed. For instance, a job seeker might feel anxious before an interview. That anxiety could motivate them to prepare more carefully, or it could overwhelm them and make them avoid the opportunity altogether. Psychologists often stress the importance of emotional regulation in maintaining motivation, because emotions shape how we interpret challenges. Another important role of motivation in psychology is its connection to learning and performance. Research consistently shows that motivated learners absorb information more deeply, remember it longer, and apply it more effectively. A student who is curious and genuinely interested in a subject will put in more effort, explore beyond the textbook, and develop critical thinking. In contrast, a student who studies only because of external pressure often limits themselves to memorizing just enough to pass, forgetting most of it afterward. This is why good teachers don't just give information. They try to spark curiosity and make learning meaningful. In workplaces, motivation determines productivity, creativity, and satisfaction. Employees who feel motivated are more engaged, take initiative, and produce higher quality work. Managers often use reward systems to encourage motivation, but the most effective environments are those that provide recognition, growth opportunities, and a sense of purpose. For example, people who feel their work contributes to something meaningful are often more motivated than those who see their tasks as just a paycheck. Even in mental health, motivation plays a key role. Depression, for example, often reduces motivation, making it difficult for people to take even small steps toward recovery. This creates a cycle where lack of motivation deepens feelings of helplessness. Therapists often work with clients to set small, achievable goals that gradually rebuild motivation. On the other hand, excessive motivation, like in cases of obsession or addiction, can become harmful when it pushes behavior to unhealthy extremes. In both cases, understanding and managing motivation is crucial for well-being. Real-life examples show how motivation can transform outcomes. Consider athletes who train for years to compete at the highest level. Their success is not just about talent, but about the motivation to persist through pain, failure, and sacrifice. Or think about entrepreneurs who face repeated rejections before building a successful business. Their motivation, often driven by passion and belief in their vision, keeps them moving forward when others might quit. These examples highlight that motivation is not about avoiding difficulties, but about having the drive to move through them. Ultimately, motivation in psychology explains how people set goals, how much effort they put into them, how long they keep going, and what makes them change direction. It is not a mysterious force, but a combination of needs, desires, beliefs, and emotions that shape behavior. When people understand their own sources of motivation, they can make better decisions, sustain healthier habits, and achieve more meaningful goals. And when teachers, managers, or leaders understand motivation, they can create environments that inspire rather than pressure, encourage growth rather than fear, and build lasting engagement. Motivation, then, is not something external that needs to be injected into people. It is already present in different forms inside everyone, but it can be nurtured or undermined depending on the environment, mindset, and circumstances. Recognizing this helps us see that motivation is both deeply personal and highly influenced by social and cultural factors. It explains why two people in the same situation can act completely differently, and why the same person can feel highly motivated one day and unmotivated the next. Psychology's role is to help uncover these processes so individuals can better harness their inner drives, align them with meaningful goals, and create more fulfilling lives.